Welcome to another edition of our Seafood News Roundup, sponsored by Urner Barry's new Seafood Price Current. We'll have more on that later on in the show. Anyway, I'm SeafoodNews.com editor Michael Ramsing, and this is the second straight show we're recording after a major historical event here in the U.S. How about that election night? While I do not have an interactive map of voting data updated in real time, I do have a bunch of fishery import, landings, and pricing data that came out in the first week of November. So we start today's headline news with a look at the FDA's refusal data from the month of October, which showed a 22% increase in monthly rejections from September and a 27% rise in refusals compared to last October. Mahi, tuna, shrimp, snapper, and lobster are the top 5 most rejected items in 2016, as filth accounts for over half of this year's rejections. Refusals for the year continue to trend well above last year's levels at 1,682 in-line items, which is a 20% increase over 2015 levels. Alaska's Department of Fish and Game released a harvest forecast for the Southeast Alaska's pink salmon forecast at 43 million pink salmon. This is a 9 million fish increase over the 2016 forecast. Alaska's Southeast pink salmon fishery, like the state's entire pink harvest, ultimately finished well below expectations this season. In other news, Urner Barry relisted quotations for new season Alaska red king crab this week, and prices of 14 to 17 count king crab leg quotations are up 19% from last November. These higher prices are not much of a surprise given the 15% cut to Alaska's red king crab quota this season. Elsewhere, Canadian lobster packers say that by January, February, and March, the pipeline for tails will not be normal at all. The expectation is for significant shortages in the market compared to prior years, which means prices could be more volatile. Packers believe that weather delays, labor shortages, and seasonal start times will contribute to an overall decline in lobster tail availability in the market this winter, which could lead to higher prices. Remember, you can read all of these stories and get much more daily news content from around the industry with a subscription to SeafoodNews.com. As for today's top story, we review a couple of data sets from the shrimp industry. We start in the imported market, where shrimp shipments to the U.S. are up just a modest 1.7% in September after a huge double-digit increase in August figures. But this relatively tiny monthly increase was still enough to push up U.S. shrimp imports to an all-time record year-to-date level, as that figure now stands at 945 million pounds for the year. Asian suppliers continue to post across-the-board increases in year-to-date imports, while there is a notable overall dip in Latin American shrimp heading to the U.S. market in 2016. In some domestic shrimp fishery news, Oregon season ended in October, and landings as of September were 31.9 million pounds. The figure is down 61% from year-ago levels, but the decline was not surprising since the West Coast fishery is notorious for lower production in seasons that follow an El Niño year. In fact, the harvest was actually better than expected according to the Oregon Trawl Commission. However, the value of the fishery to date is about half of what it was a year ago. This is because the shrimp are smaller compared to 2015, and demand for 350 to 500 count product is not strong in the U.S. market. And that's all we have for you today in today's show, which was brought to you by Urner Barry's new Seafood Price Current. You heard that right. We've updated the wholesale seafood industry's premier source for wholesale market quotations. The first most obvious change to the report is the switch from a landscape or horizontal presentation to a portrait or vertical format. The revised report also features color-coded changes to indicate market direction and a linking feature that gives users the ability to easily access Urner Barry's historical data directly from the quotations page. More significant changes to the publication involve additions and edits to how some of the seafood quotations are reported in an effort to increase the clarity of specific market behavior and to reflect updates to how certain items are most commonly traded. The report will continue to be released on Tuesdays and Thursdays via email and on Urner Barry's Comtel platform. Learn more about the changes to the Seafood Price Current or start your subscription today by visiting shop.urnerbarry.com or by giving our sales team a call at 732-240-5330. Remember, you can always tell us how we're doing on Twitter by tweeting at us at SeafoodComNews and at UBSeafood, and like Urner Barry and Seafood News on Facebook to learn more about what we're up to. You can also listen to Urner Barry on your mobile device through our Market Digest and Seafood News podcast series. Just search Urner Barry or Seafood News on SoundCloud, iTunes, or Google Play to hear in-depth interviews and reports straight from our expert staff. For Urner Barry and Seafood News, I'm Michael Ramsing. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you all again next week.